Morning. So I've been in the workshop again, just getting ready after Glastonbury, and then I did that last video where I went to that party. You know, you go to the festivals and you see people now wearing like smiley face t-shirts and that smiley back again, which is amazing. And I've really noticed this year that like the energy at some of the parties within the festivals has been that really amazing feeling again, almost like that oneness, that unity. I'm 51 years old. I was in the hacienda when I was like a kid, absolutely loving it. And we you know, we got up to quite a few things. So obviously you see the thumbnail, the title for this video, 1,000 mushrooms. Probably in I think it was around probably about 1994. So I was living in Halifax in a flat, downstairs flat, and it was in a little place called Elland. So you had the the crematorium up at the back of us, and it was all woods. We spent a lot of time in those woods, which was another story. And at the front of us across the road was the canal, and then at the back of that canal there was the river, and it was really beautiful. I think actually it's a long time since I've been back there, but I think that whole bit that just used to be fields is all industrial units and complexes now for obviously various factory type based production and distribution. But back then it was pretty much unspoiled, lovely nature. We were pretty wild. I won't say anything about that. We were pretty wild. So we took a lot of mushrooms. I when we were younger, we didn't really know anything about dosage or about what was a small amount and what was a big amount. I think we were just up for it big time. So there was this one particular day, and there was a group of us. There was always like a core 5 of us. I'm not going to say the real names, I'll just change the names. I might even forget what name I've used and use different names, but let's just say that night there was me and my best friend, a guy called Keith, that's not his name, and another guy called John, that's not his name. And then there was another lad, let's call him Ian, that was a good friend of ours, but had had to make a little trip over to Manchester. I won't say why, but he was coming back with some surprises for us. And so we started off, and there was, at that point, there was just me and John. Keith had gone somewhere, and we decided we brewed up 400 mushrooms. And as we were then, like I say, a bit wild, not really very conscientious about our health or our friends' health and welfare. So we told our mate that had gone to Manchester that we were just going to brew up another couple of hundred. We actually brewed up another 800 mushrooms and left them there in the pot. So me and then Keith appeared. I can't quite remember what John did, but I don't think he did that dose. So Keith appeared. This is a madman, but I'll tell you some other stories about him in the future. And we necked these 400 mushrooms. So what we used to do is we used to brew them up in a pot, and then when they were brewed, there were no science to this. We just used to brew it till it boiled. We used to get an old tight, you know, just like a lady's tight, them things you see your grandma wearing once upon a time. I don't know if that still happens anymore. And we'd pour the mixture through what were in the pan, through the tight into a bowl, and then we'd get the tight and we'd like squeeze it so it made a tight ball, and then we'd scrape the bottom. We used to think that was where all the goodness was, all this like gunk, like this psilocybin. We'd put that in, and so we ate these, and it was strong. You know, it was happening. And as we were at that time, Keith, who was mad, as all of us were, said, all right, okay, John's not coming back from Manchester. Let's have the rest. Now at that point, I'd kind of gone out of my mind that we hadn't put another 200 in there. We'd put 800, so we had these as well. Wow. So, and I am not recommending anybody right now to do that. I'm not trying to say to do any of this. I'm merely recollecting and telling a story about something that we did. We did many things, but this will be one of many stories that I'll tell you. So the next thing, we're on the canal. The bit from our flat to the canal, I cannot remember at all. That bit, suddenly we were on the canal, and I remember it was a full moon, and Keith is running at full pace in front of me towards this moon. Seemed huge at this point, and I'm in my mind thinking that if you look at the moon's going to make you go mad. So I'm trying to go behind him but not look at this. It was, I can imagine it was stunning, but it would have been stunning anyway. So we get to this point where there's this huge yew tree. If you walk, I bet that yew tree's still there. If you walk along the path at Elland, just a bit past the crematorium on the canal, you'll come to a little clearing between that and the river, and there was this amazing yew tree. It was massive. So at this point then, the whole of the sky, I will never forget this, turns into this like cobweb that looks like it is neon fairy lights. The whole, it's joined up. I can see the full thing right in front of me, like thousands of, and then I can hear this cackling and this wailing, and my friend Keith now is chanting something at the moon, and I am watching this cobweb, and then I'm underneath this yew tree, and the stairway comes out of the sky. You're thinking, what do you mean the stairway comes out of the sky? I'm telling you, the stairway to heaven. An illuminated stairway came out of the fucking clouds down, and so then I'm going in. Now it's took over, and the suggestions of any psychedelic, especially things like LSD, psilocybin, any type of strong, it's extremely suggestive to your mind. It's like when you say, like, normally you'd watch an advert and it's an ice cream advert and you'd think, oh yeah, they look good, I'd like an ice cream. Well, maybe if you do the same thing under the influence of what I've just said, it could say, oh yeah, I'd like an ice cream. It could also say, let's say 2 weeks before that you'd seen something about how sugar was bad and it was causing death and it was right pills. It could also say, oh, sugar, that's the dark side, that could kill you. It can take you down the scary road, let's say, and when I say scary I mean petrifying. It can also take you down, and that's the bit where I think when you get onto those very, very big doses, it takes a lot of presence of mind to ride it out. I think I can only say I was grateful that we had taken so much, well, for me anyway, at that time, we had taken so much that it was happening so fast, probably, even though I wasn't aware of the speed of which these illusions and hallucinations were taking place, that it didn't really stick to me and let me either go bad or good. So I see this stairway and I'm thinking, okay, so I suddenly made my peace. Okay, this is how I go. Heaven has called me. And I'm going up to fucking heaven. So I start to walk out. Next minute, there's these hands on my shoulder, and I hadn't known this, but I was actually walking out into the river. This is a very deep, fast-flowing river. I was at the edge at that point. Luckily, Keith and then John had appeared. He'd come. I don't know what. I think he'd had a few, and they were grabbing me and go, "Whoa, Simon, what the fuck are you doing, man?" And I'm like, like this. So anyway, I didn't go up the stairway to heaven because I think that was the suggestion of it. Yeah, you go in that river. I may not have been sat here now telling you this story, that's for sure. I think it was fucking the end of September, beginning of October, because it was obviously mushroom season. So yeah, so that passes. I'm looking at my friends and their faces are honestly going, one side of the faces is like dripping pain. And I'm like, whoa. And I remember that really freaked me out. So I then started running. So I started running along the canal. And I'm thinking in my mind then that I was one of Jesus's disciples. And I was on the canal because the only way people could come to listen to the truth now were in canal boats and along the canal, because the dark powers were arresting anybody that was a prophet of truth. Wow. So then that goes again, another dark patch, and I can hear, "Come down, come down." And then in my mind, this suggestion again is going, "Oh yeah, you're really, really high, you need to come down." I had thought I'd gone back to being an ape, I'd regressed, and I was in my then purest form. And I look around and I'm fucking halfway up this yew tree, and Keith and John are at the bottom going, "Calm down." Not because of what I just said, but because I was fucking in danger again. And I'm like, "Whoa!" like this. So I slowly begin to make my way down this tree. How I got down that tree, I will never know. But I get down to the bottom of this tree, and then it was almost as though like this thing going like pulling slowly together. And obviously I was coming down slowly but surely. And it's weird. It was, you go from this hugely intense, full, that could have been hours experience, to then like this slow kind of like, now we slowly start to go back along the canal at this point. We go back to the flat, but I can honestly say that did not end for me. For 6 months, I would say, after that, I became a New Age traveller after that. I went out and I lived in the Fens in near Spalding in Lincolnshire. And I'll tell you a tale after when I was coming back round again. I'll tell that as another story next probably. But that changed me radically. And it tickles me now as I'm sat in my life as it is now. It's an experience that I've never ever forgotten. It was very powerful, and it lasted for a long time. That wasn't it at the end of that night. That went on for at least 6 months, various things, but like I say, I'll tell you another time. But when I see all the kids now with the smileys on and all these things, obviously it tweaks memories, and you think to yourself, bloody hell, I remember when, you know, back in 1988, 89, when you used to go to raves and you wore smiley badges and have stood in the queue outside the hacienda going, "Acid!" and shit like that. It was fucking great. But this is amazing. I love to see anything where there's unity again and where people are coming together and enjoying themselves. I love to see young people enjoying themselves. It's a fucking huge part of your life. But I'll say this. I know if you can, and I might be talking to the wind, but like, try and know about your weights and measures and what suits you and what doesn't, and just take little steps if you can. That created a lot of things for me for many years in my mind that I had to deal with, and maybe sometimes even to this day there's stuff that I know I left behind, if you know what I mean, that I have never been able to get back again. But enjoy yourself. I love it.